Hello, and welcome to another fully live episode of our Q&A stream. Today we're running on Hacker Time, and I am Kody Kinzie, a security researcher at Varonis. I'm here today to answer your hacking-related questions and also to go through some of the questions that have been left on the Discord and the YouTube channel. So I wanted to go through and talk about the new Flipper Zero video game module today. And I was excited about that, but you might notice we're starting a little bit late, and that's because I have tried every HDMI cable in my house and every capture card in my house. This thing really doesn't like capture cards, or maybe all of my HDMI cables are bad. I'm not really sure. I'm able to output it to my main screen, and I wanted to share what it looks like for all of you, but I think I've got a backup option that's going to work just fine. So sorry for starting late today, but I really tried to get this video game module working at least on the stream. When it comes to just plugging it into a TV, it seems to be working pretty well. So yeah, if you have been considering getting one, they're pretty cheap. They seem to be shipping very fast. And I was planning on showing what that looks like. Basically, just imagine like this pixel art kind of scaled up to a big HDMI screen. It looks a little weird, honestly. But yeah, I guess we'll have to see on the next stream exactly what that looks like. Hello. Oh, sorry. It's not HDMI for legal reasons. Sorry. It's just a handsome screen output, I guess we'll call it. Does anybody know of a good MAC address lookup site? Actually, Wireshark has a really good MAC address vendor lookup library. Let's. Hello. I have a hacking cough. Does that make me leap? I suppose you do. You are, in fact, a hacker. Am I late? No, I'm late. You're on time. Good to see everyone today. So, all right, I have the video game module, and if anybody has questions about it, it is based on the RP2040. It's using an implementation to output to a screen that I guess is not, for legal reasons, HDMI. And yeah, it's pretty cool. I got it within a couple days, and I'm going to be testing out other things you can do with the RP2040 module. So yeah, that is something I'm excited about. The other thing I've been messing around with this week is GPS modules. I've been going on a series and talking about all the low-cost, interesting things you could buy on AliExpress that hackers would find a use for. That could be tracking and all sorts of other things. This in particular, you're able to get the exact time from space. That's very useful for some projects. You're able, of course, to track a location. And I've been interested in showing off how easy it is to use some of these really low-cost modules. But this is the one thing I really can't do a live demo on without doxing exactly where I am. So we'll find a way. We'll find a way to do it, you guys, but not this week. So that is what I've been working on when it comes to hardware, because as you know, I have been very interested in what you can buy on AliExpress for about $5 and putting together some interesting projects based on those things. So I wanted to also show off some of the comments. So of course, like the Security Forward channel now has 55,000 subscribers. That's a lot of people. And what I think is cool is we've built this community from literally scratch like 3 or 4 years ago. And it's grown through the pandemic when we were all connected remotely. And since then, I've started doing more things. I started going to conferences again and actually seeing a lot of you in person. And it's crazy to me that a project that was so small at the beginning of the pandemic now has reached so many people. So if you have reached out to me, said hello to me, or otherwise interacted with me and let me know that you liked Security Forward, I really appreciate that. This has been a really cool journey. I was not a streamer before we started this channel, and it was only having to be remote that forced us to do that, because we couldn't work on any of our episodes that were like, you know, arguably like high quality short episodes, which was our bread and butter. It kind of forced me to learn something new, and I appreciate all of you for that. So it's been quite the journey. But going through, you know, I feel like some of these questions are as much for the community as they are for me. But this question I cannot answer. So if anybody, I'm going to give it a heart for emotional support, but I have never installed Black Arch Linux on the ARM version of Mac. I can't even, my ARM Mac is like managed. I'm not even like a root user on it. So like, let alone installing like Black Arch Linux on it. So Kody, I'm sure everyone here dislikes Security Forward. Oh yeah, exactly, on the Security Forward stream. All right, so next up was a comment on the Hackers Guide to the 2023 Hackaday SuperCon. So little inside scoop, you guys, there is a new video that's going to be coming out. I believe I'm going to set it for release tomorrow, and it is covering the C3 conference. So all the B-roll that I was able to shoot, everything that I was allowed to show, we really had to come through and make sure that nobody's faces were showing. We really had to make sure that we weren't showing anything that we weren't allowed to. But I think that we did a really good job. And if you've ever considered going to the C3 conference, my hope is that this video will make you decide to go. So I'm going to be releasing it tomorrow on the Security Forward channel. I really like it. I think it came out super nice. So look forward to that, and you can see a little bit of the best of the C3 conference. And if you haven't already checked out the talks, I did a recommendation on what my thoughts are on the best talks. So kind of in the same vein as the Hacker's Guide to SuperCon, this will be like the Hacker's Guide to C3, although it's kind of like the American Hacker's Guide to C3, because I assume that most people who haven't heard of C3 like are American hackers. So that's kind of what it's skewed towards, like assuming that people maybe have been to DEF CON but not to the C3 conference. All right, so we also have, it's good to see they're actually blinking these days. Thanks for the years of educational content. Aw, thanks, guys. No, I love going to these conferences so I can share what's beautiful about them, and so that I have an excuse to talk to all these wonderful, smart, cool people. So yeah, I absolutely love going to these things, and getting to make these videos about them is a joy. Any hacker events in New York City? Yes. So I'm going to be going to Queens this year to go to HOPE, Hackers on Planet Earth. So my hope is that I get to do a bunch of workshops there this year. And it's always a lot of fun working with our friends there. We know a lot of people from HOPE who also go to C3, and they are all wonderful, cool people that are, yeah, just lovely to work with, and have made it very easy for us to teach a lot of people. So at C3, we ended up teaching like 175 plus people. So if we can do anything close to that at HOPE, I will be very happy. But there's also just some good hacker spaces in New York. I've been to Hack Manhattan because I was staying in Manhattan, and it was not very far from my hotel room. So it was literally like a 5-minute walk. And I immediately made a friend there and had a really good time. Everybody seemed cool. The space was really welcoming, and they do a lot of events. So, or like have open nights pretty frequently. So if you don't know of any specific, like, I don't know, like conferences or anything you want to go to, then just check out one of the local hacker spaces. Because I see Resist NYC is also a hacker space that I really want to go to and was planning on, but it's in Brooklyn. And I was in Manhattan, and I was like, I'm really lazy and I don't know this area well, and Ubers are expensive. So I ultimately decided to go to the one 5 minutes away walking from me repeatedly. And I think that was actually probably a good call. Oh, there's a 2600 meeting this Friday, NYC 2600. Yes, so there's some cool like hacker groups out there that are like affiliated with DEF CON. 2600 is a well-known one, and if you're looking for something to do, that would be where to go. Can you teach us how to hack billboards? I feel like that's one I got to be careful about. So when I used to do the Nullbyte channel, like there was plenty of things I could have done, like how to change gas station price, like sign prices and whatever. We just couldn't do it. We had a really excellent editor named Justin Myers, who continues to be the editor for Wonder How To today. And Justin was the police. Justin became the man, and was telling us like, okay, like these are the ones that are just cybercrime, and these are the ones that like you should actually do. Or like, what is the use case for this? Like, who would actually, like, in what non-malicious way could you do this? I have a hard time imagining in what non-malicious way you would do that. So as a result, I think like the little Justin Myers in the back of my head is saying, don't tell them that one because they'll abuse it and then you'll get in trouble. Just because, like, how many, like, I can't give you an example of billboard. Basically, for me, it's like, if I can give you a lab or an example to work with, then I don't think it's an issue. You can safely practice it and there's no question. But if I just like teach you how to like, like hack into a billboard and like change it arbitrarily, there's no like fake version of that for you to practice it on. It's like either the real thing or nothing. So I tend to hesitate on that. That being said, I don't have any special knowledge on how to do that. I just know that with the flipper, you can affect like what the prices like look like, but it doesn't affect the pump. So like there is a way to potentially like affect what the sign says, but it wouldn't be what you actually pay because there's no way to interface with that system. All right. Also, hello, James. Hello, name. Hello to everybody else in the chat. I am seeing all of that, and I am here to answer your questions. Oh, I'm in Manhattan. I can show you around next time. Oh, that would be super cool. Yeah, I stayed there because Varonis has an office in Manhattan, and it's really beautiful. Honestly, it has like an incredible view. So I got to stay super close to there for a company event, and the second it was over, I booked another several nights, and I got to know the hacker side of Manhattan. And I have to say, going from like a marketing conference to like a little bit of urban exploration with some like cool hackers I just met was exactly the balance I needed to really enjoy New York. So I had a really good time there. I hope to be back soon, and because Varonis is based there, I imagine I'll probably be back this year. So I will let everyone know well in advance. I actually got to do a stream in Varonis's like super fancy like corporate like office there with like the city of New York as the background. It was super bright, actually. I had a hard time seeing the screen, but it was really pretty. So yeah, hopefully I get to do it again. Let's see. All right, so going through the rest of this. So we did this video on hacking computers from blocks away with a Wi-Fi duck where like we have, I have a Wi-Fi duck actually. Rare. So this was a project I worked on with a friend a while ago where I got to do a lot of like training using these little suckers. And it's basically just a D1 Mini and a SparkFun Pro Micro soldered together. And then I just like taped it too, because like, why not? But the result is you can plug it in and it's like a USB rubber ducky that's remote. It can go like really, really, you can remotely control a computer from super far away. So the comment then is, Jesus Christ is Lord, which I assume means like, I'm strongly surprised by this video and shocked by what's possible. I'm just going to give that a heart. All right, cool. So next up, hey, can you do a video where it's possible to inject a reverse shell into the C of a target machine and access it from the SSH in the C2 server? Buddy. First of all, I love being called buddy. So I'm immediately going to take this more seriously than anybody that doesn't do that. I don't specifically, I mean, okay, I do know how to inject a reverse shell. So like, you want me to specifically make a payload for you. And this specific payload is like making a reverse shell in the target machine and accessing it from the SSH in the C2. Like, every once in a while I get one of these comments where I just like, I feel like you're making me do your job. Or like maybe this is like a test that you have to do for school. I don't know how to do this off the top of my head. I could figure it out, but the problem is like, I don't know what kind of like machine I'm attacking. I'm assuming it's like a Linux machine. But without further scope, it would be a little difficult. We were talking about payloads for the key crock. Man, that was such a long time ago. Yeah, it's been a long time since we've covered any like Hack5 tools for reasons. Actually, no, that's not true. We've been talking about Wi-Fi pineapples recently. And I mean, mostly the reason is just like I'm busy with other things and developing my own stuff. And like when I use Hack5 tools, I'm usually demonstrating a payload type. And it's not so much about the tool, it's about the technique I'm trying to show off. And it just happens to be the best tool for that technique. But yeah, we did a whole series, I forgot, on the key crock and some of these other things. But yeah, sorry, I cannot make this. I cannot make this for you, both because it's not my job and also because I don't know what you're attacking, my buddy, my chief, my friend. So yeah, I'm not sure. All right. So next one is talking about Cubes. Cubes is a controversial operating system. There's a lot of Xcubes users. And the reason is it sounds like a really good idea until you have to like do work, or until you get like yelled at. And so here's the thing, like Cubes runs every little thing as its own like little virtual resource, and they're all split apart. And if one of them gets infected, it has zero effect on the rest of the system. It's like everything's in a box, and it's just notoriously difficult to attack. It's also notoriously difficult to use. So like if you have like, important stuff you need to get done and one of your virtual machines gets corrupted or goes away or there's a problem with it, you can't access it, then you're in a lot of trouble, and like people are going to be mad at you and they're going to yell at you, and it's not going to, your threat model is going to change from, you know, like people potentially infecting you with malware to like your boss potentially firing you. And that change is often incompatible with cubes. So comment is, I ran this on my ThinkPad without any mods other than adding a second battery after install, putting this here to help others if needed. Yes, I don't mean to make fun of Cube's users. I think that it's like a brilliant idea and an awesome operating system. I just think it's like driving like a tank as a daily driver. It's like, it's going to flatten other things unintentionally, and it's going to be hard to park. James has to go. Goodbye, James. We will see you next time. I will be back on Friday talking about all the various cyber news this week. How to build strong scripting experience. That's a really good question, actually. I think that scripting, and specifically bash scripting, is one of my favorite skills. So I learned this skill in community college when my friend and I would attend the computer science club lunch meetings, and we would do this out of spite. And we would show up, and we were like more advanced students than like most of the other students there, or at least we knew a more diverse set of languages. So at our school, people started learning like C++. And that was just like what you had to learn. And then after that, you got to learn like Java. And then finally you got to learn languages like Python or whatever. So we would go in, and I would always make some like stupid Python one-liner. And my friend would always do a bash script. And I would almost always lose to the bash script in terms of who could write the shortest, stupidest, least understandable answer to the computer science question of the day. All, you know, the new computer science students were like using proper grammar and whatever, and their solutions were good. They were like technically correct, but we would just do things with bash scripting. And for me, just Python, that were just stupid and that worked, but you had to have a deep understanding of the way that these tools work before you could use them. So I guess my advice to being a wizard with bash scripting, or just scripting in general, is learning to use the basic tools that underlie them. So like grep, and some of the other tools that allow you to like find information, change information, combine information. All these little like underlying tools are what make scripting powerful, because you chain them together into a machine, you know? If you learn to like cat and grip and like there's all these other little like commands that allow you to like find something, run a program and take the output, format the output, like remove like certain things from the output. Like if you can learn those little tools to format text, it feels like busy work. Like I know sometimes to fully learn what cat does, or like find out some of the things other than grep for like changing or formatting data. But if you can make something that, like, for example, fires off a web request, like receives like JSON data, formats it, and then outputs an answer, like that's a pretty short bash script, but it allows you to chain things together and learn how they work. So my advice is just like make convenience tools with bash scripts to learn how they work. I personally learned most of what I know about scripting from like trying to make GIFs, or trying to make other processes where I had to use a command line tool to like open something and format something and put in a like some variables and whatever. And I'm like, I could just make a bash script that basically takes two inputs and then does all of this for me. And that's what scripting is for. It's for learning about convenience. And then if you're a hacker, once you learn how to use those tools to make life more convenient, you can use it to make life less convenient for defenders. So bash scripting is cool because you can just have this like, so the potential of bash scripting, the candy of learning this is like, at the end, you can write this one little innocent looking line of bash that does something absolutely terrible that is inscrutable to most people. And as an attacker, like that's a pretty powerful skill. As just a life thing, it also means that you can take a problem that would make a normal person's eyes cross and write a bash script to automate it and do it, you know, over and over and over again with very, I would say like the process of like taking something manual and writing a bash script for it is extremely satisfying. It's like, in my head, it's like right up there with like designing a circuit or like soldering something and having it work. An example would be, for me, I flash a lot of microcontrollers, like these little guys right here. So like something that I have to do is plug them in, use a tool to erase them, and then once they're erased, like upload a different file, and then like check the hash and then report back whether it worked or not. I can do that with a bash script. And of course, I could like do each step, but if you forget one, it really messes everything up. So condensing like 4 or 5 steps into a single step is what scripting is all about. So that's kind of what I'm talking about. If you can take a process you do in the command line, or even try out just playing with a couple things in the command line and write a script that automates them, you'll begin to understand why scripting is powerful, and it'll open your mind to what other tools you might want to throw into your bash tool kit. This is what's crazy to me is like, as a CS student, they never taught us bash scripting. You know, they never taught us Linux. They taught us like C++, and they made no attempt to really talk about operating systems or anything. And as a result, like my friend and I, when we would go to these computer science like lunch challenges, we would just smoke all these students because they just didn't have any background in using already created tools to accomplish something simple. So if like, you know, if the challenge was like format this string in a certain way, there was like 2 Linux tools that would do that exactly with a single argument. And we were always so much faster to do it. So that's just my example of why bash scripting rules. Is if nothing else, you can just completely ruin like a computer science challenge by like submitting a bash script that like does what the challenge prescribes, but is like way shorter than any other answer in basically any other language. So I like that a lot. Is a bash like a .bat file? I haven't used .bat files, but bash scripts are .sh scripts or .sh files, or shell scripts is like another way of saying it. So yeah, once you get into bash scripting, there's also like other types of scripting too. That I had to use for a couple like different projects that I got to learn, that like they're called expect scripts, where like you can take something that happens and then make another thing happen. And it's like it's something that like a bash script can't really do. And it's like a special area of scripting. But yeah, once you get into scripting, you learn the basic Linux tools that underpin all of it. And then you learn how to chain them all together into a big, like, I guess I would call it like an assembly line or something like that. So I have to say, like, as a hacker, bash scripting and networking are like really high up there with what I consider to be core skills. So if you haven't brushed up on your bash scripting, the second that you start making bad USB payloads, basically, like suddenly you become very interested in bash scripting, because the second you, let's say that you get a second's worth of access or 2 seconds worth of access to someone's computer with your like bad USB payload, with your USB nugget, you plug it in, you run a cat scratch command, which is our scripting language, and it pops open a terminal. Like, what's the fastest thing you can do to gain persistence on the computer? Like, it's almost 100% going to be some sort of bash script. And it's probably going to be injecting it persistently into a cron job or something. So knowing what a cron job is, like being able to like plan something out for, following like the attacker's kill chain, like getting persistence, and then like staging and like all this other stuff. Like, like you need to know bash scripting in order to make that succinct. So that's like the dark side of the computer science clowning that bash scripting allowed us to do. Bash usually means Linux. Yes. Oh, okay. I would say that .bat batch files is the same thing, but for Windows, basically. Okay, cool. Yeah. So I don't have a lot of experience with Windows when it comes with scripting, but I know that a .bat file is a risky thing to click on a Windows system intuitively. I just feel it. So James confirming for me that yes, in fact, a .bat file is similar to a bash file is good. That means that my hesitation was correct. All right, so sorry, I'm going through comments. Whoa, okay, yes. Unfortunately, I cannot help anybody find anyone, no matter who they are defaming. I am not an investigator. However, I would recommend perhaps a private investigator. Is EC Council BSCS program worth? I haven't taken it, so I'm not sure. Generally, I've heard decent things about EC Council. I think I heard some griping on Twitter about something they did, but I'm not sure. I don't think it was the quality of their classes, but I have not taken it, so I cannot speak to it. More like a PS1 file. Hey, okay, yeah. So that's something I do know. So PS1 file is like a PowerShell script. So I guess the other type of scripting in Windows would be PowerShell scripting, and that I know is like extremely valuable, and like red teams learn how to use it all the time. So yeah, like the Windows version of like a .sh file to me would be like a PS1 file, which is like a PowerShell scripting file, and like PowerShell is very different from Bash, and like it's very verbose. Like I feel like Bash is such a succinct, like easy little language to learn, whereas like PowerShell is so intense. It's just so long. I don't know. I just had a much harder time learning PowerShell. But if you have a Windows system and you want to learn scripting, and all of my talk about like Linux and Bash got you excited, but you want to do it on your own computer, then ignore my griping and just check out like PowerShell scripting. And I think you'll find that there's a lot of resources out there to be able to do a bunch of crazy stuff via PowerShell. I know that also, like I think that like Windows was getting like Bash or something like that, but it's just a wrapper for some other command. There's some other like command line thing that's attempting to happen on Windows, but I'm not sure how much the emulation like actually, I believe it wasn't really being emulated that much. It was just a wrapper for some like other Windows thing. PowerShell is powerful and yet lacks and or functionality, which is bizarre and hilarious. Yeah, that's what I found frustrating about using PowerShell. Is I have a couple tricks that just are intuitive with writing filters or like writing Bash scripts. They're pretty universal. You know, you can use and or like the or pipe to like specify how rules correspond to each other, and like make evaluations basically. And like if PowerShell doesn't support that, it makes it pretty hard to do some of the things that I do just like very naturally with the Bash script. Huge is a respect love from Pakistan. Oh, thank you very much. Some people are saying PowerShell is more equivalent to Bash. I would say in terms of, yes, I would tentatively agree with that, just in terms of what red teams tend to use it for. Like like a PowerShell and a Bash script have the same like threat impact potential. Like in my assessment, usually if it were to be attached to an email or something, I would like open it with extreme caution or in a sandbox, because it's about to automate a bunch of stuff. And unless I open it and I can like read through and see exactly what it's about to automate, I want to know exactly what those tools are and what they do. And if I don't know, then I should not run it. PowerShell and Batch are not nearly as powerful as Bash, but the same overall concept. Yeah, exactly. So if you're a Windows person, you're kind of like splitting between PowerShell and Batch, and then there's also like the actual Windows command line. Windows is confusing, you guys. I swear, it's just one terminal, like for the most part, in like a Linux system, and then Windows has all these like options for like different ways you could poke at the computer. It's kind of cool though. I've seen like ducky scripts or cat scratch scripts written for like Windows command line, and then I've seen lots of them that are targeted at PowerShell, and that's just because like PowerShell is going to be the fastest way to like pound out a bunch of commands that do bad stuff, like with minimal like resistance from the computer. So yeah, there's still a lot there. I think that's interesting and cool to learn on Windows. It's just not as unified, and that's a bit confusing for beginners sometimes. Batch is CMD. Okay, cool. All right. Here's a great question. What interesting things have you ever found war driving? So, oh man, I found so many interesting things war driving. I found out that all the trains on the LA Metro have a vulnerable WEP like network that's like a hidden network that all of them are broadcasting. I don't know what they're connected to, but there's just some like extremely vulnerable network connected to like every well, it used to be the Red Line train in Los Angeles. Now I think it's like I don't remember what line it is. Let me think what else. One time while war driving in Los Angeles, I discovered that there's just an open Wi-Fi network at the top of Mount Wilson. And it's an open Wi-Fi network. It seems like anybody can join. So I joined, and like I uploaded a resume, and I ended up getting hired at, I think, Uber Eats from that like resume upload. But anyway, I was like, oh, cool, free Wi-Fi up here. That's kind of nice. And I did a quick network scan and to see like, what is this? Like, is this a cabin in the middle of nowhere? And it was connected to like the super powerful antennas at the top of the mountain. And as soon as I did the network scan, boom, I got kicked out of the network. Like, because I had like triggered some like, I don't know, firewall rule or like something. but I just thought it was a cool, free, open network at the top of the mountain. I wasn't aware that it was actually like they just counted on it being so physically far away from the road that no one would get there. But bros didn't know that Wi-Fi is line of sight. So, you know, me like sitting by my car nearby looking at the sunset, I was able to connect to it. And I wasn't aware that I was actually connecting to, you know, it seemed like free Wi-Fi, but I was actually connecting to a bunch of extremely powerful broadcast antennas. What other weird stuff have I found war driving? Like, honestly, a lot. Some things that I think are funny is I have doxed myself war driving like numerous times, just like so much that I have to go back to the Wiggle war driving people and have my information removed at least 2 times a year. So that's just like a habit that kind of happens. That's unfortunate if you do a lot of war driving. You're just like, sometimes you're the only person to like upload stuff, and it just happens to be your own stuff traveling with you. And that is truly unfortunate. Like, for example, if you turn on your hotspot at any point, also while you're war driving, it usually just captures that, and you're just recording everywhere you go. It's goofy. And I've seen other people do this by accident too. So it's kind of like an interesting reverse tracking technique where like you've accidentally turned on your hotspot and run around with it and like recorded your whole day to Wiggle Wi-Fi. So of course that's just like if you're uploading data to a public server, but I just think it's funny that I have on multiple occasions uploaded my entire route to Wiggle Wi-Fi, made it super easy to tell where I've been. Will there ever be a day when the white hats conquer the black hats permanently? Not while there is free will on this earth. But I mean, I think with AI, I would say that if the white hats unleash some sort of Terminator that like suppresses humanity, like, you know, the Matrix style, then yes, I believe that until Neo comes around, the white hats would have conquered the black hats permanently. I think honestly, like, you can't stamp out criminal activity and you can't limit access to technology to the point that these attacks aren't possible. So planning for them is really the only thing you can do. And it's like, I don't know, man. This is just life. Like, organisms compete for resources. If one of them is exploitable, like, you know, the attackers evolve to, you know, take advantage of the weakness that's there, and like they use whatever tools are at their expense to, you know, learn and adapt. As long as that process is ongoing, it's going to be really difficult to have a lock on, you know, having perfect security. It's just not really possible. Again, AI might be changing this. Like, that's where, like, honestly, the like divide between people who have access to vast amounts of resources like AI and people who don't might actually lead to a period of time where like white hats are kind of like much more able to defend. But I think that as soon as those AI tools go over to the dark side, then like we have the same situation all over again. Only it means now that you have to level up your defense by far, because defaults aren't going to cut it and you can't afford to make any mistakes, because somebody can just stick like a, you know, a red team AI on you and have it test all the different things that you could have done wrong. And if you made one mistake, then it'll get you. Like, that's the future we're looking at. The problem with Wiggle is they don't share your data. You can contribute, but it's hard to search. And they say that the reason they can't do a database dump is because they're not sure how to, or something to that effect. Yeah. Okay. So there's fair criticism of Wiggle. I found that when I was designing a tool that, okay, let me back up. We did this awesome video at some point. I know we just talked about it. Oh no, it's how far Wi-Fi can go. But we did this awesome video on like how far Wi-Fi can go, and it was one of our first videos. And what was cool about it is that oh my gosh, we have so many videos. What was cool about it is that we ended up finding that there was an absolute ton of Wi-Fi networks we could connect to and see really, really far away. So we ended up, wait, I want to see by views. Yes, where is it? There we go. All right, sorry, I just want to show this off. So yeah, this video right here. So I had to design a tool to figure out how far away the Wi-Fi networks I was able to see actually were. So we used Wiggle data in order to do that. And basically what I did was I set up on top of this mountain, and I took out this ridiculous Yagi antenna, which I had thanks to the wonderful and understanding people at Simple Wi-Fi. And I used Wireshark to capture as many beacons as I could from all over the city. So I used an omnidirectional antenna, and then I used the directional antenna. And this is still one of my favorite projects I've done. So in order to make this work, I then had to take all of the MAC addresses of the networks that I saw and run them through wiggle.net and try to get a geolocation. So if those networks had been seen by Wiggle before, then it would return the location, and I would be able to tell the distance between me and that point. So here's it actually in motion or in action. When I click on any of these networks that I get a positive result on, I also get the distance from how far that network is from the observation point. So this one right here is 5.34 miles. So that's pretty incredible. But in order to make this work, it was really difficult. I had to contact them a couple of times because I was getting rate limited really hard. And what was interesting, a lot of this was my data. Like I had uploaded this data because I am in the top 100 contributors to Wiggle. Yes. I was wait. Okay, I want to be accurate. I think I'm in the top 200 contributors. Don't quote me on that. I need to check my account. It's been a minute. But anyway, yeah, so a lot of this was my data, and like I really wanted to be able to have better access to it. But I was able to contact them and eventually get access within the time limit I had for the show. But like I remember like time was short, and like I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to reliably use this technique because of rate limiting. Also, look at how smoggy this day that we finally got out to do this on. Like we were like, yeah, we'll use the cinematic LA landscape to make this video really interesting. It didn't really go that way. It was actually very smoggy. But yeah, so that was my problem with Wiggle, is that I wasn't able to access in some cases my own data to verify how far something away from me was. I think that if they're willing to make the data more available to researchers or easier for researchers to use, that would be a huge benefit and kind of like I guess an incentive to provide more information to them. I myself have provided a ton of information to them, and I'm able to like pull down a very large database of my own like observations, which eventually I would like to like make public or find ways to sanitize and then release for people to do research on, just because I have so many examples of Wi-Fi environments in so many places. But that data is also scrubbed on their server of certain things. So for example, like you can't stalk someone from a tire pressure monitor on their car using wiggle.net, because they scrub out like Bluetooth data, or at least they scrub out like identifying Bluetooth data that could allow you to track someone down. So there's other privacy issues I have with Wiggle. I have accidentally like created networks like sometimes or like links between networks where I was able to have one of my microcontrollers. I powered it on, I typed it into Wiggle, the MAC address, and I could see all the places I had used it to teach classes. And I was like, well, that's weird. But I remembered like, I'd accidentally been creating a record of where I was going. And when I ran this microcontroller, it was just a hotspot of like classes that I had taught that year. So just keep in mind that when you contribute to a database like Wiggle, or if you're doing war driving and you're centralizing your data, it can begin to create an unintended like footprint. That could be, like I said, you leaving your hotspot on your phone. It could be like companion devices, like something in your car or like in your backpack that has an access point or a Bluetooth like network. Again, the Bluetooth network should be scrubbed from what goes on to Wiggle, but if you were to share like your like war driving run with other people, that information would be included. So just something to keep in mind. Like war driving is one of those things that potentially exposes a lot of privacy problems. So as a result, I think the people at Wiggle have done a decent job of addressing this and creating a balance. But for anybody who's like using raw like files, like for example, I used to just drop like raw files for people to use in research, where I would just ride the LA Metro for like an hour and just record the entire time and then just upload that. And I thought that that was perfectly fine. Of course, I was like giving away my location and all this other stuff, but for the sake of research, I didn't really care that anyone knew I was riding this particular train at this particular time and like in public. So I thought it was okay. But if you were going to go back to your house, or if you were going to do anything else, like you would not want to upload like a raw Wiggle or Kismet, like a GPS run, because you would be making a very detailed, very, very detailed, like like list of everywhere you went, and then also potentially devices that can be used to identify you or identify when you are nearby. So just keep that in mind. Like I would say the more sensitive things are Bluetooth, honestly. Like Wi-Fi has gotten a lot better, but Bluetooth, there continue to be Bluetooth devices that never change their MAC address that travel along with you all day. Your headphones, your other accessories, your watch, like all these things that could have Bluetooth in them now. Yeah, like they're with you all the time. And if they don't change their MAC address, which usually they don't, then they can be used to identify where you are. So each person is beginning to have their own unique radio signature. And, you know, it's a cat and mouse game of trying to like identify them versus like staying private. But yeah. Speaking of Wi-Fi, randomized Wi-Fi MACs can be discovered by looking at the second character in the MAC. If a second character is a 2, 6, or A or E, then it's a randomized MAC. That's a really good thing to know for a filter. So let's just talk about MAC addresses for a second. So when you have a wireless device, like a Bluetooth device or a Wi-Fi device, it has a media access like ID. It's basically the MAC address is how I would describe like the license plate of a car. And then when it joins the network, it gets assigned what I would describe as like a parking space, and that would be like its IP address. And generally in the scheme, like it's going to display the same like MAC address each time it joins, and it will get a different parking space according to what's available. And that's how this networking thing kind of works. Now, because that MAC address can be used as an identifier, like manufacturers have had to change the way that devices use their MAC address and basically put out a randomized one until they're connected to a known network. And then even that was being used by me, actually, to reveal devices' real MAC address. So if I wanted to track a phone, I could just create a big swarm of networks that they probably had seen before and get their phone to connect to one of them and reveal its actual correct MAC address. So this was a trivial technique, and I demonstrated it relentlessly over the last several years. And as a result, manufacturers have, in part of researchers like me, manufacturers have upped their game again. And now most devices will pick a MAC address either like per network. So like each Wi-Fi network that they join gets a unique but consistent MAC address. So each time it joins that MAC address, it gives the same randomized MAC address. But it appears to, to the Wi-Fi network that the same device is joining over and over. Or like my Pixel, it will pick a completely different MAC address every single time it joins any network, which means to the Wi-Fi network, it looks like maybe 16 different devices are joining if my phone disconnects and reconnects 16 times during the day. So that's a couple different models that are used for MAC address randomization. There's still ways of poking holes in this, which I am an expert at and enjoy doing. But doing this sort of thing does make it a lot more difficult for me to be able to track someone by their wireless devices. So this comment is kind of just talking about how if you're looking for like a real MAC address or a spoofed one, then you can tell that a device is using their randomized one that's not going to be useful for tracking them by looking at the second character in the MAC address. Let's see. So yeah, like I would say that like MAC addresses in general are like super interesting, and like I kind of want to go more into detail on it on another like part of the stream. But yeah, like the ability to poke a hole through MAC address randomization is a subject of intense debate because it basically enables tracking. And there were like department stores that were so bad at this, and they are so bad about this that they were sharing data between stores and like tracking your entire visit to various stores and like storing that information in a profile. It was really like it was only fairly recently that manufacturers started doing something about this. So this was an extremely viable tracking technique up until pretty recently. And even now there's still ways of getting around it, but it takes like specialists to kind of like figure out like the best ways of doing so. Let's see. I accidentally marked a spoofed out-of-country BSSAD I was testing to my work. I forgot to turn off the AP, and Wiggle opens on my phone when connecting to my car's Bluetooth to go home. Yeah, I have accidentally added a lot of networks that I was not supposed to add. So if you guys are not familiar with Wiggle, this is not Wiggle. This is actually my overlay. So maybe I'll show it off. So wiggle.net. That's okay. Let's not do that on the stream. So Wiggle.net has this huge heat map of all the different Wi-Fi networks that have been discovered by various people, a lot of those people being me. In fact, when you go to Los Angeles, you can see the bus line that I used to that's not Los Angeles, that's Santa Cruz. There we go. Look at Los Angeles is like blazing with radiation. All right, let's go here. So you can see that there's some areas that have a lot more heat than others. In my specific zone was downtown Los Angeles, and then this bus line right here that goes up that street and down that street. So I used to have a job where I was paid like $15 an hour to walk around this grid of downtown LA. And like record like how many parking spaces were open. It was for like a parking startup. And as a result, I would just like have a Raspberry Pi with like 2 wireless network adapters and Kismet running while I walked around like this grid. And I just like burn these networks into the core memory of Wiggle.net. Like that's how I earned my current ranking, is this job of just soaking up every wireless network in the densest part of Los Angeles, including the ones that were like up at the top of tall buildings. So yeah. Definitely make sure when you're doing war driving that you are careful when it comes to adding stuff to this. But man, 1.22 billion Wi-Fi networks. A lot of this, well, actually, no, I was gonna say like some of the client observations are obviously gonna like go crazy as soon as we start doing MAC address randomization. But these access points will be consistent. So yeah, 1.22 billion Wi-Fi networks observed. But let's put a caveat in it. Like there might be some instances where like hundreds of networks are getting added that are completely fake, and I am responsible for this as well. So how am I responsible for inflating the count of Wiggle by potentially hundreds, if not thousands of networks? Well, I have been using tools in my research that create fake networks with randomized MAC addresses, and I can create hundreds of them at a time, and I can use these swarms to basically figure out which networks people have joined in the past by judging the reactions that happen when I create those networks. So there are probably a good amount of networks in here that I've committed that are completely fictitious, generated by microcontrollers randomly, and they are basically me like doing fuzzing attacks against like random nearby wireless devices to see which networks trigger them to do something interesting. So not all these 1.22 billion networks are real networks, I regret to say, but the research here I think is still really interesting, and like, being able to see the types of like Wi-Fi encryption over time. Let's see, where is WPA3? Oh yes, where WPA3 is right here at 1%. So this is when people like, is WPA3 going to end Wi-Fi hacking? It literally only affects like 1% of all cases observed at this point. So of course this isn't adjusted for like how many of these networks are still in service. So that's just like, like of all time, I think. But still 1% of networks using this type of encryption. So you can see, I think that this is adjusted for like live observations or something within a period, because you can see like these ones like die out over time. But I just think it's crazy to me that like we've had this standard for I think 3 years now, WPA3, and we're at like 1% of observations. Yeah, I have to say this is a pretty interesting number to me. I really thought it would be higher. I thought it'd be like 10-20%, like not 20%, maybe like 10% at this point. So I was off by a scale of 10 on this one in terms of like how many networks are actually protected by the latest type of encryption. Thanks a billion. Oh yeah, so here's so looks like email verification model is now necessary to registration. But again, like there's lots of interesting data here, and frankly, like if you want to, so here's another thing that this is useful for. Like if you want to create a simulated wireless environment, so imagine spoofing the exact Wi-Fi BSSIDs. Let me put this up. SSIDs, the amplitude of each network in order to do full indoor GPS A. Yeah, so a GPS or assisted GPS is something where your phone uses the position of nearby wireless networks or the signal strength to determine where you are when GPS isn't available. So if you've ever tried to use a GPS module, you've probably noticed that it doesn't work indoors, but your phone does. And the reason that it does is that those Google like Street View cars that were driving around were also recording the wireless networks that they encountered. And now, because they know the general position of all those wireless networks, since they did their own little wiggle thing, they can determine where your phone is and give you a pretty accurate GPS position as a result. And that's called assisted GPS or a GPS. So if I wanted to, what I could do is, let's say that I want to pretend that I'm over by Rockwood Street. Okay. I could zoom in here. Is it going to tell me network names? Or do I have to log in? The idea being, if I zoom in here and I see like what these networks are called. Oh, wow. Yeah, they have started gatekeeping this data. Wiggle Bros, come on. Like, let's be cool. Like, I don't want to have to log in for this demo. But I can see like, for example, the names of networks. I can see the like signal strength or the relative position. And what I can do is I can create fake wireless environments. So if you are in an indoor place where GPS doesn't work and there's not many other Wi-Fi networks around, you can make phones think that they are in Mark Zuckerberg's pool. And the reason for that is somebody went through and found which networks are back there according to, wireless observations. So when you create these wireless networks, the phone observes them, it sends it to an API that asks for a GPS location based on those known networks. And then, it receives Mark Zuckerberg's pool as the location, and your pin will drop to there. So you can check in there, you can whatever. Again, this only works if you don't have access to GPS, like if GPS isn't working. So it's not like a way of like spoofing GPS like all the time. It only works in indoor scenarios, and other Wi-Fi networks being around can obviously interfere with this positive identification. But it is a really cool way that you can actually spoof a GPS, and you can use wiggle.net to basically drop a pin somewhere and figure out what networks are around it and then create that wireless environment. You can see it actually work on your phone. It's super cool. Wasn't there a vulnerability in WPA3 that allowed downgrading the protocol? Yes. I believe that there was a number of attacks against WPA3 that if the access point supports WPA2 as well, you can just downgrade it so that it thinks that it is working with a device that is not capable of using WPA3. That's what's funny, backwards compatibility and being able to spoof who you say you are. So if I am a fully WPA3 capable device and I try to join a network that has dual compatibility, I will be expected to use the more extensive and harder to hack challenge to log in. But if I pretend to be a device that's not capable of supporting that protocol, then most of these routers will happily downgrade to using the less secure protocol to log into the network. Really easy to do. And so there's also some denial of service attacks against WPA3. So basically the problem is like you have this protocol that, oops, I think I selected the wrong one. Yeah, there we go. Sorry about that. This new protocol is more expensive on the processor than the old one is. So it uses like an elliptic curve cryptography like algorithm to figure out like whether or not the supplied key is correct. And as a result, it actually can crash the router if you send too many authentications attempts. It basically ties up all the resources and causes it to not be able to accept any more. So you can just send like a reasonable amount of connection attempts to a WPA3 device. And unless it's patched against this, the initial versions of WPA3 were able to basically use so many resources on these constrained devices, the router, that they were not able to process any requests, and it was effectively a denial of service attack. Oh, BT integrated in GPS gives a whole new meaning to pan and scan. Okay, all right. Do you have a video for this creating fake Wi-Fi networks to figure out what people have connected to in the past? Yes, I have a class about it. I have a video about it. So the technique, or I guess what I coined as the name of this technique, is a beacon swarm. And the idea is that you create a swarm of probable networks that most people have connected to in the past because they're major brands or airlines or hotels or schools or other things that, would be interesting to know, maybe sensitive organizations. And you create this swarm of networks and you wait for one of them to be triggered. And when that one's triggered, you make a note of it and then potentially create a real fake network that they can actually join instead of a swarm of beacons. So if you look up beacon swarm, I made a number of different videos about them and written about it. And I think it's a really cool technique that I saw demonstrated by Matthew Van Hoff in a research paper and worked with Stefan Kremser, aka Spacehoon, to support in the V3 of the Deauthor project. So this was really cool research I got to do like in the trains and in Los Angeles, like exploring like what triggered a big response, what didn't, and kind of tweaking things to work better. And the results were really interesting and cool. So look up Beacon Swarm, but I will see if I can perhaps find that. I think that we are almost through with time, but let me see. Oh yeah, okay, cool. I'm so proud of that. It actually comes up as like the first result. Let me turn this back on. All right, so I wrote a, who's Toolified.ai? Oh, it has my information. Oh yeah, look at, developed by Spacehoon. Is this like a literal, like someone's charging like a, what? Okay, I don't know what this is. I don't know what this AI tool is. It's just taken my my YouTube video and like literally translated it with that. Like that's not how that's Hoon is spelled, but okay. Anyway, so I wrote a Nullbyte article on it, and then I also made this video on it. Is it on Nullbyte? Where did I put this? I bet it is on Nullbyte. Oh, it's me. Yeah, so this has 1.1 million views. So I guess I would recommend this one. It seems to be the most popular video that I have talked about this technique. And it's one of the things I love about microcontrollers is that in the original paper, Matthew was saying that like with Linux tools, it was only possible to create a couple like fake Wi-Fi networks. But in this, I immediately realized there was a way to do this so that, so that it looks like there's a ton of fake networks that are juicy, interesting networks, but there aren't really. Wow. People have been keeping track of me blinking for a very long time. All right. All right, cool. So that is just about all I have time for today. I have a bunch of tools that I'm going to talk about on the Friday stream. I have this that I unfortunately wasn't able to show off today just because it didn't friggin' work. But you know, you can still see what my flipper looks like. This is my flipper. You know, they still have the Q Flipper app, and it's not exactly the same, but you can see that little guy, you know, working on soldering and whatnot. I don't really know why I wasn't able to get the HDMI output working. I really worked on it hard for like half an hour, and it was just not happening. But if I do get it working, I'll be talking more about the Flipper video game module. And I also have to give our friend Davis a shout out. So Davis made an awesome beginner quick start guide for the Wi-Fi Nugget recently, and he also made this really cool smoke grenade for like movies and sets and such, and it's so incredibly cool. Like I just like love the design. I like the video a lot, and also PCBWay sponsored it. It's got like a little fan to like kick out the smoke. I don't know. I'm enchanted. Like I think it's super cool. So if you're looking for an interesting and awesome design, some of our content creators are making some really cool stuff. And aside from the awesome Nugget Quick Start Guide, this is also something I'm excited to try out myself. All right, and per always, I have to give a big shout out to Varonis for having the wisdom to allow us to continue to hang out with each other every week, talk about these fun topics, and answer your hacker questions. If you want to support the stream, you can let them know that you still want the stream to go on by going to varonis.com/Kody. That's KODY. They do check to see how many people go each week, and it helps us continue to make the stream for you and justify our own existence. So I have a lot of fun every week. I also get to go to conferences to meet all of you. So yeah, we are looking forward to the RSAC conference happening in 10 weeks. So yeah, if anyone is planning to go to RSAC, please let me know. We'll hopefully be shooting some video there, and just thinking about how that's already coming up. This year is going by so fast. So 10 weeks, we'll see some people in San Francisco, I'm sure. But yeah, good to see everyone, and I will see everyone again on Friday. Well, where I will probably still be floating in the void. I'll still be in Los Angeles, making my triumphant return on Saturday. So I will see everyone on Friday. Goodbye, y'all.